Alright guys, I got a 05 F250 today, 6.0 of course, and it's a crank no start, no codes in it at all, and I got my PIDs up on the scanner here. These are the most critical PIDs to select if you have a no start situation, crank no start. You gotta make sure we have sync and Fickum sync. Get some focus too. And then of course all your Fickum powers. And then most importantly and most common is your ICP pressure. Now yesterday I was cranking this trying to get it inside and it got to about 450 PSI. So we'll see what we got now. I had it battery charging overnight, but it's been indoors, so the temps are around 60, 70 degrees for the oil temp. So we'll see what we got. Only getting about 287 it looks like. And we can see that our ICP sensor is not biased. 0.23, 0.24 is perfect. And our Fickum powers were good also. Either way, we have an ICP issue. Alright, since we're going for the rear cover there, we definitely got to pull this pedestal out of the way. I loosened all the bolts on here. Just make sure you get them up and out of there, because there's that big hole from the drain and at the cover there. So make sure you get them all out of here before you start lifting this pedestal off of here, especially this back one that's right next to the hole. After that, the pedestal just lifts up and out of here. Alright, since we're going for that high pressure fitting back there, or the pump, either way, when you get this cover off of here, you need to first and foremost pull the IPR off of here. It's got a little button for the shield. Get that off of there, and we can disconnect it after we unwrap it. We can get that harness up and out of the way. I like to stuff a rag in here, pull it up to the top here, and then we can start doing our bolts, and more importantly, start cleaning this nasty mess around the outside perimeter so we don't dump it all into the engine. Get your IPR socket in there, unscrew your IPR so we get that out of the way. Alright, our IPR is out, our turbo's out of the way, and we got the valley here clean where it meets up with the cover, so we don't throw a bunch of garbage down in there. I used brake clean and compressed air and got all the way around the sides here and everything too. And now we can start pulling these bolts out. There's 8 bolts that are in these spots right here. They're 8mm. You can pull those out. Get to the easy ones first. Now this one has a EGR cooler delete going on, so there's nothing covering all these bolt holes here. There's usually a big old EGR cooler here, and yours probably has that. To get to these 3 bolts on that side, the best thing to use, well, of course, is a combo wrench, box end wrench. But what makes it really fast is a gear wrench, especially a flex head gear wrench. And then you can get in here and go under the cooler and ratchet, and same with that one. Now for this back one, you can get your hand under the downpipe here, and then you can get your ratchet in here and start ratcheting also. Okay, once all 8 of those bolts are out, there's 2 bolts that hold the cover, well, they support the heat shield back here. So they bolted a cover right here and right here, and they're 8mm bolts also. But they're from the back side, so you have to reach your hand through the heat shield and around over here, and you can get those out. I think the gear wrench is best for those too. Alright, so this bolt, this one right here, and then this one, they're going to stay in. The back one you should be able to get out. That very back one back there, and the rest of them should be able to come out also. And get all that out of the way. And then we can start prying up on this cover to get it off. Now the best thing, you use a wide flat blade, scraper like this, and you can get it in there at an angle and start getting it underneath the cover. Now there's a seal along here, and it's not an actual sealant, it's an actual seal inlay. The bigger problem is up here where it goes around the actual pump. That's the one that really sticks. So we need to break both of those free at the same time. So I just get it underneath here, and then you can start prying up on it, kind of like that. Alright, so pulling this cover off on here is a real treat also. Of course you're going to pop it up on this side, and you're going to start working it out at an angle, and then you have to kind of fight the Y pipe here and the EGR cooler and move it around. And just kind of keep moving it so you can get it past and up and out here. Now this one, of course, is very, very easy because the cooler's gone also, so the Y pipe is not even in the way. You can see already this snap to connect fitting is definitely separated without even air testing. And this one's separated with such force, which can happen sometimes. I don't really see it that often. I hear a lot about it, but I don't see it that often. Is it'll eject off with such great pressure, and then it'll hit the back cover and actually crack it, like right there. You see that crack right there? And it'll crack the back cover. Now some of these get split down pretty far. This one, I'll see how it looks, but it looks like it only got cracked at the very tip up here, that's top corner. So we'll see when we take it off. Now the problem is this customer is on a budget, which is fine, and we may end up just RTVing that for him. It's his option. I would obviously change it because there's a lot of splash oil back there, but if you're on a budget and you need a truck to get back up and running, it's not the end of the world, especially because this truck has other leaks on it, so it's nothing new. Alright, so we confirmed the snap to connect fitting is definitely leaking, so we're going to have to pull the pump off and see how extensive the damage is to the back cover and all that. So first thing you need to do is pull these two 8mm bolts that hold it to it, and just in case, I like to stuff rag right next to it, because after that the whole back cover is open with all the gears for the cam and all that in there. And if you got this in here, at least it may catch or lodge a bolt in case you mishandle it and you drop it. Be very careful pulling these bolts out. And then get those bolts out of there immediately, one at a time, so you don't have any chance of dropping anything back there. After that, there's 3 bolts that hold the pump in, one right there with its sockets on it, and then those 2 right there. So pull those completely out, and then we'll be able to lift that pump up and out of there. Now another good reason to have that rag back here, even though the bolts are out, is because this fitting sometimes gets so blown off of there that it's actually fully separated. So you pull the pump out, and that fitting falls down in back here too. So I got all 3 bolts out. We should be able to lift straight up and off of here now. A little wiggle. It's got notches. Once that pump's out of the way, make sure you get your O-ring from here and right here. You're going to need a small pick. Maybe crust it in there. Get them out now so we know they're out. We change them now. And this one might be hard to see because that high pressure oil reservoir in the front here, it's feeding through here, is just flowing out of there freely now. But it's a big yellow O-ring. This one's stuck in here too. Okay, as soon as you take it off, bring it over to the bench here and mount it up in a soft jawed vise or with the rags like I have. It's the only option I got. And we can start pulling the seal off for the cover. get that off of there, we can start cleaning this puppy up. And the groove here. And while you got it on the bench, just to make sure you turn your pump. You should hear it pumping in there. You know, no rough spots, no bind spots. Should just kind of turn like that. You can verify that then. Now this one, like I said, was really bad, so watch, I'll be able to just take it off probably. Yeah. This one just has fallen off. You can see how bad the ring is. It's half blown out of there. And it's just a really bad failure. We can get this fitting off of here. It's a 1-inch. The new one comes in the bag. So on these new ones, we got to set the depth on them as far as how far out it goes to meet up with that branch tube. So we got to turn it in about 5 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then they give you an alignment bracket on here / depth, and take the big plastic bolt and you put it through here, and it's got a wing nut for it, and then you can make sure that the holes, the 2 holes here, line up and go through here and the actual fitting here. And then we'll put these through, and these line up pretty darn good. So we're going to put these 2. Now this right here, this actual fitting can cock side to side still, which is still loose enough, and we got the correct depth because these holes line up with the bracket here. So now we're just going to tighten down the wing nuts here. Snug. Okay, we're snug. Now I need to tighten down this bolt so it sets the right angle. And you can see we can't move it anymore, so we got the correct depth and the correct pitch on here. And you can see it's hard, if impossible, to move. And that way we got this set in place, and we could tighten this jam nut right here. And then it should be set at the perfect position. And this bracket will hold it for us while we're tightening this jam nut. This jam nut is 15/16, and I just tighten it till it's snug, and then I give it a little bit more. Now the actual torque spec on this jam nut is 49 foot-pounds. I think I can get pretty close to that. Get it nice and tight. After that, you can pull this bracket off. You don't need it no more. Once that branch tube adapter here is all set and tightened down, we can go on to sealing up the pump, resealing it. And this big old blue one goes on top here to seal to the high pressure pump cover. And I put a little bit of trans gel on there so it slides down a little bit easier with that cover when we reinstall it. This fitting comes in a kit with the fitting itself, that blue O-ring, and then your bracket to align it, obviously. It's all inclusive. And then of course your new pump cover seal, and then you got your high pressure seal right here for the branch tube where the actual adapter mates to, and then this one's for the low pressure feed on the bottom of the pump. That yellow O-ring. And then these ones are for your IPR, and you can reseal your IPR also while you're in there. And that'll fit right in there. Here's the thin, hard O-ring. And don't lose this one. It kind of fits in there tight, so it can't pop out of there. So get it fully seated in there all the way around. And then we're going to get those two dowels lined up, and it'll drop into place. You can kind of tell we're in there now. Next thing, make sure this gear back here is aligned with the cam gear. So let's turn it a little bit. And we are. Because I can go one side, it hits. Go the other side, and it hits. We're in that gear mesh. And then I can't turn it more than this because we're down into those dowels. So next thing we got to do is put the high pressure branch tube there, bolts in to the fitting. And we'll get those threaded by hand first. We'll start tightening them down so we know that they're in the threads and they're going in properly. Nice little 8mm gear wrench like this. Works really nice for this, and you still have your feel for the bolt. Now if that branch tube fitting, that snap to connect fitting blew out like that, you're going to have to bend that block for the branch tube back a little bit. And I put a punch inside of there, and then an extension over the top of that, like a 1/2-inch extension, and it gives me the leverage, and I can pull it forward and try to line it back up. This one was all the way against the cover, obviously, because it blew out, and I had to bring it back quite a bit. So hopefully it doesn't have branch tube issues. You really can't see it, and I can't feel anything wrong with it. So we're going to have to air pressure test this before we reassemble all this, and we'll be able to tell then. So we're just going to get these bolts down. So they're close but not touching, and that way it keeps that all aligned. There we go. Now after that, put your 3 bolts that mount the actual pump down back in there. There's 2 on this side and 1 on the other side. And we could put those in by hand, and we could feel they're aligned also. So snug down your pump bolts, but don't snug them down all the way, and then come back here and feel this gear one more time and make sure you can move it. Because once you tighten those bolts down, it'll be harder to move. You should be able to go one side to the other side and make that knocking noise. And then you know it's meshed with the cam gear for sure, just before you do the final tightening, before you finally snug them up here. And then we're going to torque them down to 25 foot-pounds. Just jump around. And then we're going to torque down the branch tube bolts for the fitting to 125 inch-pounds. Snug these down. And after this, your pump gear can be meshed pretty tight, so it'd be hard to get a good read if you meshed or not. Okay. Alright, so going back in, just make sure that all your bolt holes here are blown out from all the oil and crud in them, and then clean the whole area up, and then finalize it with some brake clean, and then we can put the sealant on these 2 back corners. This little glob of it right there, and right there, those 2 spots where it meets the rear cover. And then I need to put a glob where that crack is at. After that, just make sure that this blue O-ring is nice and greased, and then make sure your cover's clean, and that you have the new seal in here all the way around, pushed in really nice. And then we can angle it in here Now mine's very easy again because that cooler's not on here. Basically go down straight. Now if you're putting yours back in with the EGR cooler in the way here, this bolt and this bolt are going to have to be in the cover while you're angling it through and in here. That's why I leave a rag down in the valley here behind the pump until I get this thing in here and flat, and then I can pick it up and pull that rag out of there. That way, in case this bolt or this bolt falls in there, it'll be on top of that rag and not just fall way down deep in the engine immediately. And that back one right there we can get to. We can do something like this and jump around. Sometimes you gotta help it down like that. And then we could continue snugging them down. Jumping around. Alright, once you got these all evenly tightened down so that it presses down evenly, torque them down to 96 inch-pounds, and that there's no torque pattern for that. Just jump around in a crisscross pattern, and that'll be good enough. Alright, next, before we get too far, put in your bolts for the heat shield in the back on these ears right here on each side, and then we can start on the IPR. Your kit should come with a resealing kit for it. Change those 3 O-rings on there, and then we can hand tighten this back on here, then final torque it. Get our connector on here and latch it, and then put this fancy wrap around it for the heat shielding. Velcro, and then we got this last heat shield on here with the little jacket and the button on there. Little snap. There we go. It's a tight fit on there. Now we can go ahead and put your pedestal back in. Angle it in like that. We're going to put our 4 bolts in for the pedestal into the valley here and bolt it down, and we're going to keep them just a little bit loose so we have leeway to line up with that turbo up pipe perfectly so we have no exhaust leak. Now I know you're anxious, but before we go ahead and try to start this, make sure we got everything that we've possibly touched for air testing or otherwise put back together, like the ICP sensor back in and tighten down, all that stuff, so we don't have no problems after we go ahead and start it. Alright, success. Now it may run horrible, it may die out. It's totally normal. Since we are started, I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the shop so I don't kill everybody else in the shop. And it actually runs really good. Super smooth, no misfires, kind of lucky. Usually these will misfire for quite a while and you'll get little hiccups while it's bleeding the air out of the high pressure system. Alright, we're just going to let it idle for a while now and let it, bleed the air out of there. And then once we know everything's fine, there's no, major leaks and it doesn't die out and all that stuff, we can go on a test drive after that.